hours before dawn, as so often happens, the storm disappeared. At first light, the monk ventured outside his grass hut to inspect the damage. Many big branches, as well as 2 sizable trees, had just missed his hut. He felt lucky to have survived. What suddenly took his attention, though, was not the many uprooted trees and fallen branches scattered on the ground, but the many leaves that now lay spread thickly on the forest floor. As he expected, most of the leaves lying dead on the ground were old brown leaves which had lived a full life. Among the brown leaves were many yellow leaves. There were even several green leaves, and some of those green leaves were of such a fresh and rich green colour that he knew they could only have unfurled from the bud a few hours before. In that moment, the monk's heart understood the nature of death. He wanted to test the truth of his insight, so he gazed up to the branches of the trees. Sure enough, most of the leaves still left on the trees were young, healthy green ones, in the prime of their life. Yet although many newborn green leaves lay dead on the ground, old, bent and curled up brown leaves still clung onto the branches. The monk smiled. From that day on, the death of a child would never disconcert him. When the storms of death blow through our families, they usually take the old ones, the mottled brown leaves. They also take many middle-aged ones, like the yellow leaves of a tree. Young people die too, in the prime of their life, similar to the green leaves. And sometimes death rips from dear life a small number of young children, just as nature's storms rip off a small number of young shoots. This is the essential nature of death in our communities, as it is the essential nature of storms in a forest. There is no one to blame, and no one to lay guilt on for the death of a child. This is the nature of things. Who can blame the storm? And it helps us to answer the question of why some children die. The answer is the very same reason a small number of young green leaves must fall in a storm. The ups and downs of death. Perhaps the most emotional moment of the funeral service is the time when the coffin is lowered into the grave, or in a cremation, when the button is pressed to move the casket. It is as if the last physical reminder of a loved one is finally being stolen from the bereaved forever. It is often the moment when tears can no longer be held back. Such moments are particularly difficult in some crematoriums in Perth. There, when the button is pressed, the casket descends into a basement complex where the ovens are located. It is meant to replicate a burial. However, a dead person going down has the subconscious symbolism of going down to hell. It is already bad enough losing their loved one. Adding the intimation of descent to the underworld is often too hard to bear. Therefore, I once proposed that crematorium chapels be constructed so that when the priest pressed the button to commit the deceased, the coffin would rise up gracefully into the air. A simple hydraulic lift would easily suffice. As the casket approached the ceiling, it could disappear in swirling clouds of dry ice and through a trapdoor into the roof cavity above, all to the sound of sweet heavenly music. What a wonderful psychological uplift that would give to the mourners. However, some who have learnt of my proposal have advised that it might take away from the integrity of the ceremony, especially in such cases where everyone knows that the dead scoundrel in the coffin would hardly go up there. So I refined my proposal, suggesting that there could be 3 buttons for committal to cover all cases: an up button only for the goodly, a down button to take care of the rascals, and a sideways button for the ambiguous majority. Then, in recognition of the democratic principles of Western society, and to further add interest to an otherwise dreary rite, I could ask for a show of hands from the mourners to vote on which of the 3 buttons to press. This would make funeral services most memorable occasions, with a very good reason for going. The man with 4 wives. A man who was successful in life maintained 4 wives. When his life was about to end, he called to his bedside his fourth wife, the most recent and youngest. "Darling," he said, stroking her legendary figure, "in a day or two I will be dead. After death I will be lonely without you. Will you come with me?" "No way," declared the illustrious girl. "I must stay behind. I will speak your praises at your funeral, but I can do no more." And she strode out of his bedroom. Her cold refusal was like a dagger to his heart. He had given so much attention to his youngest wife. He was so proud of her, in fact, that he chose her as his escort to important functions. She gave him dignity in his old age. It was a surprise to find out that she did not love him as he had loved her. Still, he had 3 more wives, so he called in the third wife he had joined in middle age. He had worked so hard to win the hand of his third wife. He loved her deeply for making so many joys possible for him. She was so attractive that many men desired her, yet she had always been faithful. She gave him a sense of security. "Sweetheart," he said, grasping her tightly, "in a day or two I will be dead. After death I will be lonely without you. Will you come with me?" "Absolutely not," asserted the seductive young woman in a business-like manner. "Such a thing has never been done. I will give you a lavish funeral, but after the service I will go with your sons." His third wife's future infidelity shook him to the core. He sent her away and called for his second wife. He had grown up with his second wife. She wasn't so attractive, but she was always there for him, to help him with any problems and give invaluable advice. She was his most trusted friend. "Beloved," he said, gazing